Hey folks, Sin here. Um, so today we're going to do a brew video. Um, Before we jump into it, I just wanted to thank everybody in the community on Discord, people watching on Twitch when I do that, everybody on YouTube who's viewed the video so far. Um, really appreciate all the support. Um, I wanted to start off today talking a little bit about uh, kind of what started me on the journey here, which is obviously I really enjoy the game of Magic, and I think that the MTGA experience in particular um, has a lot of potential. Gives access to the game for a lot of us that don't necessarily have not necessarily access to paper cards, but to other people to play with. So when when life presents situations where you can't easily have access to a local game store, to a group of friends to just sit down and play with, something like MTGA is there to help you play, right? Um, so that's excellent. I think one of the issues with an environment like MTGA though is while it provides that access, it doesn't necessarily foster the community aspect, the social aspect that actually playing a normal paper game of Magic would provide. So when you're playing a paper game of Magic, you're sitting down across from someone or multiple people if you're playing like a heads up multiplayer game. Um, and you have that experience that you're looking at the person, you're watching their face, their eyes. You can see what they're looking at, when they're looking at things. Um, so certain behaviors you wouldn't um, spam good game or whatever. You wouldn't just start saying that repeatedly in a game if you're losing in real life, but in a virtual environment, people will do that. Or the roping phenomenon, you wouldn't just sit back in your chair and do nothing for 10 minutes. In real life, the other person would not play with you anymore, right? So MTGA has this odd dynamic where it provides that access to lots of people, and then also kind of isolates at the same time because of what it is and how it has to be built. So what I want to try to bring with some of the other creators and communities that exist is another outlet for community, social interaction, and sharing ideas, because in MTGA a lot of the focus is on the ranked competition. How quickly can you complete your daily quests, get your free to play incentives and bonuses, and then either you kind of do those things and then maybe you're done, or if you're competing, it's just the churn as quickly as you can, and neither one of those things kind of foster that connection. So I hope that through these videos, um, any of you watching can find new ideas, new ways to look at the game, rediscover some of the different play modes and methods the game has to just enjoy what is much more than just a strictly competitive game. Um, there's so much more that you can do, even if you just build a bunch of decks that have no chance of being competitive, or if you are competitive, taking the top decks like we've kind of talked about in some of the previous videos, and tweaking them here and there to adjust to the directionalities that the meta is going in. Because uh, if you've been playing over the last few weeks, you can see what we kind of thought maybe was a solidified look at the 22 meta, for example, at the tail end of August. Once once the new patch came, there's no new cards really for the 22 meta, and yet after that August season was up, there are a number of new decks kind of flooding at a very competitive level. So there's always something new. There's always variations on the existing. And it's important to always analyze that. And even if personally you don't feel like you're good at those aspects, or you don't want to be a builder, tweak decks and stuff like that, that's fine. There's ways to still approach the game and realize that's what's going on, and keep an eye out for people who are doing those things, so you can kind of pick up um, those changes yourself, make the adjustments that others are making, and keep um, ahead of the meta yourself, right? Or if you're just playing for fun, taking all these things that are going on in meta and just kind of coming at it sideways, or not playing in ranked at all and enjoying some of the other queues like the Historic Brawl, um, doing like MTG Melee, for example, runs just uh, custom tournaments like the Mithras Multiverse, our Discord. Um, we ran one not long ago. So there's tons of ways that people are using the game to have these fun interactions, totally outside of the normal ranked uh, queues. Um, but not everybody necessarily knows that, understands it, or knows how to find others that are doing those things. So again, um, I'm hoping that through here we can help give you that window, give you that comfort, to dive in more, look at the cards. Sometimes it's nice just to you know pretend you're doing like an artisan type draft or build, and take a look at cards in a whole new light. What if I don't have rares and mythics? What can I build? Even if you go into ranked, how far can you get if you want to play around with the rank? Maybe you just got to your next tier, so it doesn't really matter if you lose some at first. You just want to mess around, um, or you take it into a play queue, or if you have a nice group of friends, you could just do some direct challenges. So again, many ways to have fun, learn. Um, those are the big things. Pay attention to what what you see in the meta, what your opponents are doing, and just take those things in. Talk talk to people. There's lots of things. Reddit, Discords. Tons of us are out there. So please come find us. Give us your ideas, um, questions, whatever. We're ready and waiting to help. So with that, we'll get into a brew and see what we can come up with today. All right. So today, I think we could go we could go in so many directions, of course. Um, I was thinking about doing a uh, historic brawl brew. Um, so the Jumpstart Historic Horizons just came out, and with that came Freyalise. Let me type in here after I select the proper one. Freyalise is a new to MTGA, and well, this is new in general also. So it has a digital only ability, which I'm still. It's been very helpful, but I'm still kind of mixed on this idea in general. Let me switch my camera position here so it's a little easier for you guys to see. So the ability in question here is this seek, right? So what seeking does is it will find a card of the highest type by count from your deck and just give it to you. Just a random one of that. So in this case, it's an elf card. So it will find a random elf card from the deck and give it to you. I It's been very helpful because it's a very low cost. So if we just look at the card overall, it's 2 green and a white, so it's a very low cost, low barrier to get it onto the field. Um, it's a -1 with a 4 starting loyalty, so that's pretty powerful. You're effectively searching your library, but notice I say search, and this is seek. So this you're not searching; it's just pulling a random card and giving it to you. You have no choice or agency, as the fancy word would be. You have no choice as to what that card is. It will pick one at random from the deck and put it in your hand. So this has been helpful overall because you get a card, right? You're filling up your hand. You have a guaranteed drop, but you have no choice as to what that is. So that could be a very good elf. That could be I mean, usually you're stacking your deck with elves that are good. However, for a given situation, that may not be a card that's helpful, right? Um, so by and large, I have mixed feelings about the randomness of the seek utilities. They're okay, I think. So that's the seek effect. Um, so the next new digital only effect is perpetual. That's the +1 you can see. So this card kind of represents, it's a really good representation of 3 of these new effects, these digital effects. So the top ability for this planeswalker, the +1, untap up to 1 target elf. That elf and random elf creature card in your hand perpetually get +1/+1. So what's different about this compared to counters is that this will act as if the card was printed with that additional stat line. So if you have an Elvish War Master, for example, normally that is a 2/2. If you give it this perpetual +1/+1, it will act as if it was printed as a 3/3 forever. So if you have it killed and then recur it somehow, it will come back as a 3/3. If it gets a um, +1 counter, it'll be a 4/4. If it gets a -1 counter, it would be a 2/2. So it acts as if it was printed with however much perpetual plus or minuses it gets. So it's like a permanent modification to that copy of the card. Um, and that's important, right? You're perpetually you have perpetually modified that particular card. So it's not like all copies in your hand, deck, graveyard, wherever will get that bonus. It's that particular card, right? So that's something to keep in mind with the perpetual. It's not you target that one and then it affects any version you have. It's that particular one. Uh, but that's very powerful. And like for example, the Vesper Lark infinite combo with Davriel's Withering or Davriel himself. Vesper Lark can recur a creature when it goes to the graveyard. So the idea is you perpetually give it a power of 0 or less and a power and toughness, right? So it will die if it's in play, goes to the graveyard, recurs itself back to the battlefield, which instantly dies because of perpetual, recurs itself once it hits graveyard, dies, infinite loop. So you've established your infinite loop, and then you just pair it with some creature or effect that um, when it dies or enters the battlefield, either way, whichever one you get rolling, your opponent loses life, takes damage, whichever, and then you infinitely do that, so whichever that is until they're dead. Um, so that's one way right now already that perpetual is getting abused to win a game, right? So that's already an infinite combo that's legal, exists, people are doing it. So it can be very powerful. For the most part, like here, the +1 is nice, right? It can help make our small elves a little bigger, withstand, chump blocks better, or some burn spells, stuff like that. But really, for an elf deck, untap is our what we really care about, right? That'll let our Archdruid untap, a Marwyn, something like that. We want to be tapping or have the ability to tap for lots of mana, whether that's to drop 10, 20 elves or power up a War Master 3 or 4 times, whatever that is. We want tons of mana. So that will help us get there. And then the last one, Conjure, that's also quite powerful. So Conjure, unlike normal methods of making a creature when it's not already in the game, right? So this is a net new item to the game outside of the existing cards, right? Um, so Conjure, unlike creating tokens, creates a real card, and that's a very important distinction because, like, think about Banishing Light. So that card is 2 and a white. It'll exile, target non-land permanent that's, I think, mana value 3 or greater, something like that, right? So if you target a token with that, like if it was a copy, right, a token copy, you target a token with that, the item would vanish, right? Because tokens disappear when they're exiled. A conjured item will not disappear because it's, as you can see here, it's an actual card. So her -6, Freya's, when that comes into play, it's a real card. It'll be there for the rest of the game unless it actually gets really exiled or something like that. So this conjure effect is very powerful. It's going to be adding real cards to the game. And I think right now it's not necessarily seeing a lot of uh, play or build around. There's not a ton of things building around this yet, but I think this will be one of those sneaky abilities or new mechanics that um, gets abused more than initially will have been realized, because you're you're adding things to the game that weren't there again, and unlike tokens, they're going to stay there, right? So things like recursion decks that care about your graveyard, or uh, your overall card count. This is going to change that. You're going to be able to play with those numbers in a completely different way than you could before. You're adding net new things to the game in an entirely different way than was ever possible. So I think this is much more powerful than it may seem at first, and it's going to take a while for people to really um, figure out how to abuse this in a way that I think it can get abused. So this will be something to keep an eye on. I think the conjure effect in particular, perpetual is already obviously strong in certain combo mechanics, but I think conjure could be as strong, but in some different ways. It'll take longer for people to kind of reason through. So anyway, those are the three kind of new digital mechanics that are introduced. And with that, I wanted to make a historic brawl deck with our new friend here, and see what we could come up with to play around here. So obviously this will be an elf base. So we have our commander here. So now we need 100 cards. One of the things that they changed in the last patch, thankfully for most people, was they corrected the base land that's added. So let's just this is going to be a good pick anyway. Allosaurus Shepherd. So before it was only adding like 32 lands or something like that, which is appropriate for like an 80 card deck, not really for a 100 card deck. So like this is like the right range for a 100 card deck. Um, so just keep that in mind if you're building a historic brawl deck or a 100 card deck in general. Uh, Keep an eye on your land counts. You want to make sure your ratios are good. Too high, too low. You're going to overdraw, underdraw on your lands, flood out, have a desert. You're just not going to get anything. Um, so we'll start off. Let's do a search here for elves in particular. One of the things when you're building a deck, whatever, learn some of these basic search terms and filters if you haven't before. They're pretty simple for the most part, and you don't need to learn all of the crazy stuff going on in there. Some simple ones, just like T colon is for type, right? So if you're like, hey, I want to find some goblins or some elves, T colon elf will show us all the elves, right? If you wanna, you're like, gee, there was some card and it said something like, blah blah blah, enter, but I know enter the battlefield was in there, right? You could do O colon enter the battle. So O being for Oracle or rules text. Do a search, and then that'll show you, hey, anything that says enter the battle, right? So just I would I would recommend learning at least like the O for Oracle rules text, the T for type. Those are very helpful. Those two in particular to learn. Name. I mean, if you already kind of know the name, you can just type in And if you saw, if you use quotes, it will use whatever you type in here exactly. So if you put in, um, let's say, fabled passage, right? Within quotes, it'll find that particular card. If you do not have quotes around it, it'll use each of those terms as an individual search item. So this may not be the best the best example. There's not enough other cards that have these two words in them. But if there were other cards that had the word passage and fabled in them, you might get like a whole bunch of results that you don't really need. So like if I do like I'm not really sure on like I think Worm Master, but I don't know like Worm. Right, so you get the idea. So I recommend learning some of um, those filters. They will definitely help you out as you're building or just trying to find cards and kind of look through uh, your collection and options here. Okay, so we will add in a pretty normal general run of elves here. Um, so being 100 cards, brawl decks are singleton based, so we have to pick just one of each that we're going to add. So one of the things that a lot of people fall into, like a trap wise, is so this particular deck we'll build here is going to be very easy, right? It's very thematic. It's a tribal deck, so we already have that going for us. It makes sense straight up. We're building elves. Like it's very clear idea up front. If you were building like an Alayla deck, an Esper color, there's not a there's not a ton of fairies, and that particular commander, the Alayla card, is one that wants you to be casting artifacts and enchantments to have her trigger her ability. Um, so it can be easy to just go crazy and add like every artifact and enchantment you can think of, but that may not actually make a cohesive deck, right? Um, so when you're building something like a historic brawl deck where it's singleton, you still have to think about the choices you're making for the cards. Um, why are you including those cards? What's the overall goal? What's your mana curve? Yeah, as with anything else, um, playing, building, whatever, you have to think. It's not, it's never as simple as just throwing a bunch of stuff in there. And in the brawl decks in particular, do take some planning. You have to have an actual plan. Like, okay, I want my Alayla commander, so I know she's gonna buff flyers. She needs enchantments and artifacts to trigger. What are the best ones that are gonna, you know, fit into making her work, help progress my mission, help with card draw, help with land smoothing because we're Esper, so that's going to be a little more difficult to get rolling from a mana base perspective. But I still need a good creature base to help protect her, yada yada, right? So all those things kind of add up, and when you look at it, if you just throw every enchantment you come across, it'll just be too random, right? You won't have a cohesive deck at the end of the day. It'll just be an assortment of cards that are the right colors, but don't work, and then you just lose. So pay attention to that, and before you really build, try to think about how you want your commander to work, right? So we have Freya. Um, so obviously, I talked about the untap ability. The main use in this, because your brawl deck colors are based on your commander's colors. She's monocolored, so we're mono green. There's not a so we can't like do a surprise burn spell or anything, right? Um, so we could do like a pump up for some like buff spell because green does have that. We could use it with our War Master here. The 5 green elves you control get +2/+2 and gain Death Touch. That's a typical outlet. So there's a couple ways to use the untap to help power our mana producers to then get a kill switch. But that's kind of, so that's what I'm talking about, right? We have to think about, okay, we have this commander. Why do we want that commander, and how are we going to use that commander to actually win a game? Um, Otherwise, why are you building with that commander? Why not some other commander? So right now, I've added a general selection of elves. Um, some of the standouts for this particular idea are going to be Marwyn, the Nurturer. So whenever another elf enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Marwyn. What is amazing about this particular card is it's whenever, not for the first time on that turn, or whenever blah blah blah, activate only once per turn. So it's whenever, straight up. So if you dump 100 elves in one turn, this will trigger 100 times. It's amazing. So whenever another elf enters, she gets a +1/+1 counter, and then you can tap her to add a green for her toughness. So if she was a 100/100, you would get 100 green mana. Amazing card. Um, Obviously, another standout is our Archdruid. So he buffs elves in general, and then he adds 1 green for each elf we control. So again, if we go nice and wide, like elves do very well, um, tap him, let's say for 10, 20, whatever that number is. Also excellent. So again, these are our prime targets, hopefully, with Freya for untap. So we tap, Archdruid for 10, untap him, tap him again, now we have 20. And then we could power up our War Master at least twice, for example, right? So all our elves then have gotten +4/+4 in Death Touch, right? So that's kind of the idea. So we have then outside of that, we're just kind of getting support elves, ones to help buff, ones to draw. We have Varus in here, so maybe we'll get a little dungeon action going on if we draw into him. Plus, he has built-in ward, reach. That's never a bad thing. Still low cost. We can grab the elite. That's good. Go to the cowl. Basically, we want as much mana production as we can get, and anything that will buff, that's never a bad thing. So let's keep going here. Get a Paragon. So this one is great. If it's really early, we can just play it if we need a chump blocker. Otherwise, if it's later, the kicker to do the top 6 search is also excellent. Preserver. This is a very strong card. Flash and reach, and then whenever. Again, this is another one of those whenever without restriction. non-human enters the battlefield, you can pay X and then put that many +1/+1 counters on them. So this thing can grow to ridiculous size very quickly. Um, so that's great. It doesn't tap for mana, but that will give us a very large creature potential, and it has reach built in. So if they, if an opponent has some creature that's growing from, spell casting or whatever, and it's a flyer, cool. Like we can block it now. Okay, so here's a new card, Scryshot Lookout. This is one that has that seek effect built into it. So we'll include that just to help keep elves rolling into our hand. Evolution Sage, because we're doing the singleton, we have a lot of space just to fill up. So that Evolution Sage is nice for the proliferate. We're going to have a lot of counters hopefully floating around. So that can help keep that rolling. Let's see, got our visionary there. Got a reclamation sage. That's great to just blow up artifacts and enchantments, which usually there's at least one you don't want the opponent to have. Undergrowth. So this could be good for mid or late game if we've been taking a beating by an opponent and maybe they did a board wipe or something. If we can draw this later or just hold on to it. If they wiped out a board of 10 or 15 elves, drop that and maybe get a single turn kill out of that. So that could be a good option. This guy's cool too because landfall, we're not specifically going to be a landfall deck, but having extra mana or life gain potential is never a bad thing. And then combined with the Evolution Sage, excuse me, we can potentially start duplicating those. Or not duplicating those, but just yeah, that was that was wrong. You understand what I'm saying? They're just more opportunities for extra outlets, for mana, for life, for getting +1s on our team. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's see. So this could be a good option if we start stalling out with odd draws. So the Armorcraft, draw a card for each creature with a +1 counter on it. Hopefully that's going to be many. This guy can help if we can turn normally not mana producing elves into mana producing elves. Now we're into the more expensive elves, which usually by and large are not very good. Typically the 4+ mana cost elves are kind of just bad. Like we're not going to be a power deck really, so that I don't really care about. Um, yeah, these are not super helpful. The Duraga Visionary is just a more expensive Manowar Visionary. It's not as good, but we need kind of filler. And the Okeem can be discounted, so that's nice. It has Death Touch, which is nice. And it has the potential for recurring card draw if they're afraid to block this guy. so that's nice. Um, I think so. This the Accomplished Alchemist. This is a cool card, but we don't have a lot of. There's not really any elf in this. In what we've been given so far, that assists with life gain very much. So trying to build a life gain deck in mono green in Historic Brawl, uh, I don't think that would go very well. Uh, so we could include her and then try with like some other various things to like maybe just stumble into that scenario, but I don't really think that's worth it. So we will not really include that. Um, Thorn Lieutenant. This is a nice one to include. So we'll get that one. Get a Circle of Dreams. Get the Rejuvenator. uh, that's a good one too. So this is another whenever. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, put that many +1 counters. So if we do like a Elven Ambush, we make like 40 elf tokens or something ridiculous like that, he'll get 40 +1 counters. So that's amazing. Grab that. So this one could be good just in case we have a ridiculous amount of mana, but nothing really to do with it. That can be good. Grab that. Let's see. Get the sniper, so we have the potential to deal with flyers. So we can just spend mana to deal damage to them. If we can tap for like 30 or 40, we can deal a substantial amount. Okay, I think that'll cover the straight inclusions of the elves. So now let's take a look at the general cards we will want to include. Um, so for land, we will certainly grab a Castle Garenbrig. Again, any named land in a historic brawl is going to be a singleton also. So anything that's non-basic land, any of your specialty non-basic lands, those are all going to be singletons also. So keep that in mind. You can't load up on 4 of castle, 4 of whatever, right? It's going to be 1 of for anything that's non-basic. Grebelair the Hydra because that's an X land that we could potentially make into a huge creature at some point. Um, the Memorial to Unity. This is a pretty neat card. It can help re-kickstart if we kind of get into a wipe or we're just kind of stalling out. So it comes into play tapped, but it does give us a little search action if we need that. And then so these other ones are not really that helpful for us for our game plan. And then we so because we're a monocolor, that lets us be more flexible for the land. So we can get things like Blizzard Brawl and just go for a snow base and be pretty sure that we're going to wind up with snowlands pretty often. So actually, by that extension, I'm pretty sure I skipped it. Let's grab the the Boreal Outrider. Boreal. Um, okay, so we got that. Then let's see, we want so we could get something like Snakeskin Veil, but so actually this has been pretty powerful. This is from the new set Wild Shape. What's nice about this one versus Snakeskin, it doesn't give you a +1 counter, but it does three potentially different things, right? You can give something hexproof if you want to. You can make something have reach if you need to do a quick jump block, or you can give something trample. So it gives you three different kind of options depending on the situation to handle what's going on in the game state. So this is a really nice utility card to give you some protection option or some offense option depending on kind of what's going on. So we'll grab one of those. I like that one quite a bit. So then we can grab put a Guy's Blessing. That's almost always a good call if you're running green and it's a historic format. So just in general, you can reshuffle up to 3 cards from your graveyard into your library, and then you get a card for draw. Or if it is milled into your graveyard, then you shuffle your graveyard into your library. So if someone's trying to mill you out, and that gets hit, boom, graveyard back into your library, start over. It's great. Heroic Intervention. So this is a great card. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, and that's everything. So that's all permanents, lands, creatures, planeswalkers, artifacts, enchantments, everything that is yours, hexproof, indestructible until end of turn. That is a excellent card to withstand a crazy attack, to attack in and not lose your board, whatever it is. That's a very powerful card. Inscription of Abundance. That's going to be pretty nice, I think, for us. I think a Rune of Might could be helpful for us as well. One of the things that could happen if we go up against another deck that is go wide as well, if we kind of were stalled with them, getting one creature that can start trampling through could make the difference between winning or losing the game. Yeah, let's grab that because we're going for Song of Freyalise. Yeah, that's good. So this one lets all of your creatures for the first 2 modes tap for any color, and then for the third one, you put a +1 counter on each creature. They all gain Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. Okay, we're up to 85. It's getting close. Grab one of these. You find a cursed idol. So that lets us potentially kill an artifact that's a problem, an enchantment, or create a treasure and do a venture if we need a little extra mana. We get this Valaged Recovery. So we can bring something back to our hand if we need to, or play it as a land if we're mana short. And let's see, the next thing we can grab Crossing Grip. This is a good one. So split second basically shuts the stack down when you cast it. They can't do anything else. So it basically makes it uncounterable. Effectively, that's what it is. Um, and then it lets specifically what this is to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Uh, so that's a good one as well. And so as you can see, like outside of the elves, we're kind of going for um, just some good utility, right? Hopefully deal with what's going on the board, maybe a little recursion for ourselves. We shouldn't need too much extra ramp, so that's why I'm not really going for stuff like cultivate and things like that. The elves should be producing a massive amount of mana for us already, so we really shouldn't need um, help there. If we do, something has gone seriously wrong with our game plan, and we're not doing good in the first place. Collected Company. Of course, we have to have Collected Company. So this is one of the most ridiculous cards of all time for a tribal deck that is low to the ground like ours is. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. Put up to 2 creature cards with mana value 3 or less onto the battlefield. Just straight up onto the battlefield. So that's amazing. Uh, Very helpful for us. Um, so this one's pretty good too, actually. The You Happen on a Glade. If we had mana trouble, this would be not bad. And then also it lets us get a permanent from our graveyard back to hand. So it's kind of like an instant speed Bala Ged plus a cultivate where you don't put anything into the field, but add instant speed so you can do it at the end of an opponent's turn. Not bad. All right, and then so we could go with another planeswalker here, Eliwick. So we don't have many ways that we're going into dungeons. Um, but if we, between Eliwick and Varus, if we manage to get through a dungeon, we have Eliwick here. If we can get her ult off, they can all get trample. So that could be another way to get into a trample situation. We can also get Garrick here, which straight up his +1 would give a creature +3/+3 in trample. So we could do one, both. I think Garrick is more usable up front, although her -2 is also pretty great because you look at the top 6, reveal a creature, and put it into your hand. So if we're kind of running dry, that helps restock our hand. Whereas Garrick is more just about beatdown, right? So if we don't have really anything on the board, he has a -2 to help fix that, but that may be too late. Whereas she kind of helps keep your hand rolling, venture effect, stuff like that. So for now, we can put both in, and then we can take a look after and see if we need to make any cuts. What else can we do here? Let's see. Let's see. go with something like Toski, but I might end up just decking decking ourselves, so that could be a bad idea. Da, da, da. So this can be good. And actually, that reminds me. So I'll add this and then we'll go back to it. We should pick up a Realm Walker. Totally forgot. So Realm Walker is exceptionally powerful. It's changeling. Choose a creature type when he enters play. That lets you look at the top of your library at any time, and then you can cast creature spells of that type from the top of your library. Um, that's it's stupid powerful. It's really really powerful for an elf deck because you're tapping for insane amounts of mana. Your creatures are for the most part very cheap. So if you, and this is one of the things that's very important about a an elf deck, is you have to have lots of creatures. So you can see we have not many other things, right? Our planeswalker, instant sorcery, enchantment, blah 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 count is much lower than our creature count. Our creature count is very high because when we draw into something like a realm walker, we're looking at the top and casting from the top of our deck. We can just chain cast, 5 or 10 creatures in a row, and then we have grown from maybe 5 things on the board to 10, 20 things on the board, and then next turn they're dead. Um, so that's the power of an elf deck. Like it's very cheap, and then once you start dropping elves, casting from the top of the deck, game over. That's it. So that's the type of effect we want, which actually is also. Uh, so yeah, we'll grab one of these as well, Masked Vandal. Not the same effect, but also a changeling, so it'll count as an elf for us in general, and we can use that to exile an artifact or enchantment if we need to when it comes into play. But what I want to grab is the Ranger class. So its third level is effectively the Realm Walker ability without having to have the Realm Walker or choose a creature type. It's just um, any creature at the top of your library you can cast. So we'll grab that as well. Okay, and then so I said I would go back to Frey, or not Frey, Vivian here. Um, so again, it basically the exact same thing. You can look at the top of your library anytime. You can cast creature spells from the top of your library. Her actual abilities are okay. We don't really care about them. We care about her just passive ability. When we cast her down, we can start chain casting from the top of our deck. That's really what we care about there. And then let's see. So we have four cards left in general. So we will look at stuff like maybe exponential growth, uh, ecological appreciation. This one is actually surprisingly good. So what this does is it lets you search your library and graveyard. So if a bunch of stuff has died in the game so far, you can start recurring stuff, right? It's one of those rare green recursion to battlefields, right? So you can search your library graveyard for 4 creatures with different names, and singletons are perfect for this, that have mana value X or less. Reveal them. Opponent chooses 2, and then you shuffle the chosen cards into the library. So whatever the opponent chooses, you shuffle them into your library and put the rest into the battlefield. So first of all, if you choose 4 things in your graveyard, you get 2 back to the battlefield and 2 back into your library. So your library gets restocked. you get 2 things into the battlefield. Um, so as long as you can pick 4 things, you're getting 2 things into the battlefield. Your library, if you picked anything from the graveyard, is getting cards back also. So this is an excellent card that I think doesn't see enough play, actually. It's a lot more powerful in a mid-range um, creature deck than I think people give it credit for. So we'll grab one of those. I think we'll grab a Nylea's Intervention. So this could help us with flying creatures. The the first option, search your library for X land cards. We're not doing landfall, and we don't really have any way to take like 20 lands and dump them. So that one doesn't really matter to us. It's really the second option. Deals twice X damage to each creature with flying. If someone's doing like angels or something, and we happen to draw into intervention here, and we can tap for 5 or 6, that will deal 10 or 12 damage to anything with flying. That's what we want. So we'll grab one of those. Exponential growth, that could be good for us. Similar idea, Primal Might, right? Target creature you control gets +X, and then it fights. So this one could be a little more helpful up front because it has that fight effect. Whereas this one is just double the power X times, right? So if you do, 2x2, right? So 4 total, plus the 2 green, it would double twice. That's pretty good. The main issue with all of the green buff effects like this is none of them give trample, right? So this one is kind of I think edges this one beyond the fact that this is exceptionally expensive, which theoretically we can afford, but it's still very expensive because it has this fight effect in it. Then we have the long rest here, which you return X target cards with different mana values from your graveyard to your hand. If 8 or more cards were returned to your hand this way, your life total becomes equal to your starting life total, and then you exile that card. So this can be good to like restock your hand. I don't I don't know if we'd have enough things to really trigger that final version, so I think we'll skip that one. And that'd really be the only reason I'd want to play that, um, is to trigger that last option there. So we could go for like Great Henge. It'll We don't really have anything that's big power wise, so the discount won't ever be very large, but it could be a nice way to have inherent buffs on all our elves that come out and get like incidental card draw while we're dumping. The danger is if we get that out kind of early and then we dump 20 elves, we could draw 20 and then have to dump our hand, or if that's kind of already after a longish game, put ourselves in jeopardy of decking. I think we'll skip that one, even though it could be helpful. I'd be more worried about the card draw turning into a liability for us rather than it strictly helping. So let's see. We could go for something like a Multani, but that's not really directly related to what we're doing. Let's see. Could go for Primal Command. Lets us do a few things. We could gain some life, put a permanent on it on a library, so we could bounce something like of an opponent's. We could take our graveyard back into our library, or the opponent's if we needed to for some strange reason. Um, or we could search our library for a creature and put that into our hand. It could be a solid option. We'll toss it in there and then we can make edits and cuts after. That would not help. Um, let's see if there's any better different things we want to do here. We could go for like a Shia. That's um, that's really powerful. 5. It's not super expensive. And then it turns all of our elves into mana producers. There's a lot of um, removal effects that care whether something is a non-land permanent, which she will turn all of our non-token elves into land permanents. So they would no longer be targetable by those things that care. So we'll put her in for the moment, and then we can see if we still like that or not. This actually might be an interesting pick if we get up to a point where we're tapping for kind of ridiculous amounts of mana. Look at the top 5 and put any number of creatures. So if they happen to all be elves, we could take all 5 and then dump, dump hand. Or all creatures get +2/+2 for 4. That's not bad. Uh, let's see. I think let's see. Could go for one final non-elf, the Master Symmetrist here, as a trample provider. Most of our elves will be symmetrical from a power and toughness standpoint, so that that could be the difference for us in some games. Yeah, that's not bad. All right, so let's take a look what we actually have here. So this is good. We have a large portion as 2 drops. We want to stay low to the ground. Let's take a look at what our overall average 2.6. All right, let's make our 2 cuts. So we're 2 over. So we could go down on land, or I think we cut the command is one of those, and um, the let's go really close and grip actually. All right, let's take a look. 2.6. Okay. Um, Here's our land. Let's find our couple goodies here. So we'll get a faceless because we can have one of those. And so because we're monocolored, we don't need like a command tower. If we were not monocolored, you should definitely grab one. Um, it's actually an excellent card for this. We will grab one Field of Ruin because we can grab one, and most other decks are not monocolored, and they will be running some kind of creature land or multicolored lands or non-basics that at least one of them you will want to get rid of. So we'll grab one of those. Anything else we want to grab? We don't want too many uncolored, not so we don't mess with our brawl or our outrider here. But also just so we don't miss color if we're, maybe we need, it's one of those ones where we have two green, um, we get messed up because we just don't have it yet. Right, so now we'll just grab our snowland. Right, so roll out of those. Okay. 40. Oops. It's kind of annoying when it does that. All right. Let's give us a name. Freya, let's give it a sleeve that makes a little more sense here. Okay, let's take it for a little spin, see how we do. Let's see. Okay, let's check it out. Curious to see how our Freya does. I've played around with her a little bit in Historic Ranked, um, and so far she has been pretty solid. Um, like I was saying before, the Seek effect. I think overall I'm still kind of mixed about the the randomness of it because you're not choosing the target yourself. So it's a little difficult to game plan for when you're using these new seek effects. Uh, but it does help keep you stocked up, right? So it's I don't know, I'm still figuring out whether ultimately I like it or not. Um, okay, let's my client is messing up here, so let's take a pause for a moment. Restart TGA. So while that's restarting, so we just built our Freya deck. We again, the important things when you're doing a brawl deck, pay attention to your commander. It's great to pick one that looks exciting and seems interesting, but pay attention to what it does and how you have to support that commander. Um, that commander has specific colors and is doing a particular thing, so you need to build the deck around that. Um, don't forget that. Don't just make a deck and then there's a commander and they share colors. That that won't help you win a game. That's not going to help you beat an opponent, and that ultimately will probably just be frustrating. So when you're building the brawl deck, keep looking at your card selections, your choices, and asking, does this help the commander do this ability or this combo? Um, is it protecting it in the right ways? Will I be able to when it dies? Because at some point it will likely die. Does it make it easier for it to come out again? Do I want it to die? Is that expected? What's the game plan? Not just, hey, that was a cool commander, let me throw a bunch of cards together. Um, because again, that will likely just be a frustrating situation for you. And that's not that's not good for anybody. So let's see how our client's doing. After this new patch, things have been a little unsteady, to say the least, for everyone here. Sometimes you get matched right away. Sometimes not. Sometimes the client itself crashes. I think it's coming back here, so let's jump back. Okay. All right, so let's try that again. Brawl. There we go. That's better. Got our match. Dinosaur. What's that guy? Gishath. Alright, what do we got in our hand here? It's not amazing, but we got 3 land, tap for 4, disguise a landfall, buffer, so keep it, see where we go. Let's see. Alright. So, benefit for us, that commander is going to take forever to come out, and they're going to need a lot of land here, so hopefully we can be a little speedy and get the jump on their game plan. Well, that's good for them. All right, so we could just bring Freya out now and start pumping creatures. I think I'll bring out the canopy though. So that will give us at least 7. And we can tap for next turn. Or they have that. Okay. Foretell. It's probably like a crush the weak. So we don't want low toughness stuff. What we could do then is should cast this guy first. Oh, like, yeah, okay. We will bring her out. So if that is a crush the weak,
I see you wish to join the vanquished dead of Dominarius. We will unleash an autumn of steel leaves.
it'll kill his own creature, so you can't damage ours. Okay.
You stop one member of a stampede.
we'll just take it back. It's fine. Nice. Castle Garen break. So we could tap out for 6 right now. And then 7. 5. Alright, so
I commend your bravery, Mortal, but harmony with nature is our greatest strength.
just pump up the druid, and now we got this guy. We also got perpetual and this guy. So these are both buffed up also. Alright, so now that guy's cheaper. Much cheaper. Alright, so we could make 6, 7, 4. So we could cast this guy and draw. Yeah, let's cast that guy, and we'll just cast this one. Okay, then 1, 2, 3. Okay, cast that. Alright, so green. 2,
Our magic
3.
bears fruit.
There we go. Okay, now he's more expensive again. Protection from blue. Reach trample. Okay, sure. Alright, so we will cast that. And we will let's see. We could do the conjure. Yeah, let's conjure.
Gaia will have her vengeance. Nature's wisdom will guide my hand.
Okay, that's excellent. Berlin down, Pelt Collector. Ranger class. So far this is working pretty well, I would say. Alright, so let's bring our Visionary out. Reclamation Sage. Get rid of Mirari's Wake. Opponent Scoop. Alright, so that worked out pretty dang well. I mean, we survived a board wipe, targeted removal, no problem. Elves keep coming. That was exciting. That perpetual was very nice. It was more helpful than it appeared, I would say. Very powerful effect. Alright, let's see what we got here. Okay, so this is that one that could be good after something like like that board wipe we suffered. Overall, not terrible, so we'll keep it. I mean, first turn anywhere else. That's it's always nice. Bring down the druid next. Okay, we're up against Slivers. So this should be insane. This is like a classic matchup right here. Okay, how do we want to go about this? I think we start filling our hand.
I will not shy away from join the fight.
Yeah, that's a good one. Gonna pass the turn. We're gonna need to get big fast. Real fast. Once those slivers start snowballing, we're gonna be in big trouble. So their commander here, this cascade effect, that's no joke. That says when you cast a spell, exile cards. Very cute. Exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost if its mana value is less than the spell's. Put the exiled cards on the bottom of your library. And because it's cast, you may cast. Effectively, you cascade cast. So if you just keep running into more slivers that gain cascade, you just keep chain casting them essentially on top of each other in this cycle that just does not end. So it's pretty nasty. All right, so let's go obviously with our tactician here, and then we can tap, untap,
We will unleash
tap,
an autumn of steel leaves.
buff, and draw. World tree, okay. Oof, that hurts. Alright, our tactician's gonna die, but so are the realm walker. Okay, so we have our own realm walker now. That's pretty good.
Our magic bears fruit.
Let's do describe. We already know what it is. We don't need that, really. Okay. There you go. See what they get. Renegade map. Thankfully, it's effectively nothing. That's good for us. Okay. Bring out our Field of Ruin. Make a treasure token. Then we can We could get this guy. See if there's a land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or we could have a surprise group of 5/5s to block with. Not really surprised if they're paying attention at all. Let's see. Let's make him just bigger naturally
We will unleash an autumn of steel leaves.
and pass the turn. Okay. So this is the power of Cascade. Okay, so we will block that. Then we're going to kill their world tree. And let's see. Get back. A canopy tactician. Let's see. Clear land. Play our canopy. Give the first sliver -4. Auto pay. Untap. Okay.
We will
No
endure
attack.
all trespassers.
Okay, so let's see what our opponent Field of the Dead. Yeah, that's a good card to have too. So Field of the Dead here. Um, if you have seven more lands with different names, anytime you drop a land, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token. That is very nice. So there must be a uh, Maskwood artifact in there somewhere. All right, so we're going to -6.
Our hearts beat as one with the woods.
All right, we got our awesome card draw. Um, cast our Shaya. Draw a card. Yep, whatever, that's fine. Um, okay, so we can tap for 3. Well, we can tap for a lot, but we need blockers. We can tap for normally 3, 4. I'm gonna leave up 2 for heroic. But I want to get down Marwyn here so that she can start growing next turn. That's fine. All right, so we're gonna pass the turn. We will discard a forest. Weird choice. Could have put that on my faceless. Okay. So we are going to try to kill the first sliver. So he gets the cascade out of it. Thankfully, it was not very good. Okay. Um, we'll bring this down first. Start gaining life. Kill that. Bring down Symmetrist. So those all have double strike. 14, 16, 17, 19, 23, 27, 29. So we're still a ways off. Tap for... Let's do a seek here. That's pretty nice. Uh, let's untap and buff that guy.
Our magic bears fruit.
We have one left. Let's bring that out. And we will pass the turn. It seems odd. Unless they have some way to give like death touch or something. So if I do the Ashaya, which seems like the right choice, that could be a huge mistake. So they're attacking my face with that guy, and then that. So we'll block. I can't block that. Interesting choice here. Block. Okay, we'll block in like this. We'll just throw a wolf. We'll just throw our wolf at it.
Your lack of respect is obvious. You've only stopped one member of a stampede.
Let's see. Yeah. Bring it back to the command zone. Sure. Okay. If we attack with everything, I think we might have enough to just get through. So let's do that. Bring her out. We can tap her for 8. Untap her. Pick her 9. Do that. Oh, okay. Yeah, opponent saw it. Alright. So, there we go. Those are the powers of elves, even in the face of some crazy Sliver actions. Thanks for spending some time with me, brewing a Freya Historic Brawl deck. If you liked the video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Find me on Discord, the website. Again, want to see your ideas, your combos. Have some people on Discord asking me about stuff, so we'll be doing some of those decks and ideas coming up in videos soon. Thanks and have an excellent day wherever you are.